When is it?
It's on the 19th of April. And I just didn't know who to send the information.
You should send it to me.
Then the other thing was we wanted to do podcasts with the members. So one of the groups that we helped set up is D-N.J. And so they got a big band. So it's a big deal. So it's going to be
Okay.
There's end oil, like big road shows as well.
How are you?
Holman Methodist Church has their big event. So all these things are culminating. We decided how might we work together in a partnership around
Yeah, no, it would be great. Yeah. Let's send me an email about this so I can get it back on the radio. We're
Well, he was like,
yeah.
he was like, let's do it now.
I know, Rev has great ideas, and then I'm like, Rev, your schedule is a little bit different than what you're thinking.
Yeah, so let's,
Oh, yeah. That was fun, huh?
But thank you so much for everything that you did.
But you know, the podcast.
Yeah, we can.
Within that.
Lunch? I'm sure.
Yeah, well,
Oh yeah, Marty.
the podcast. So are we
Did you talk to
talking about
Marty?
your podcast or doing it with the coalition? Or doing the coalition? Yeah. Yeah, so we're actually, so we're doing, setting that up now. Congressman, I'm Tanya Clay House with the Hip Hop Caucus.
Thank you very
It's a
much.
pleasure to be here with you today. Reverend Yearwood sends his
Give him my best.
Yes, he sends his best. He happened to had to fly out. Yeah, we're excited to be here to help support this. We'll be in touch also because we're doing a briefing in which we want to kind of honor Congressman McEachin and do honor members on their work in environmental justice.
What's your organization?
Good man.
Liberty Hill
I
Foundation,
know.
which is
It's all about as I got to know the man, what he was doing was fake drip.
that was
And people, and once you understood that, you understood why he was so
He was very sincere.
very committed and didn't let bullshit get over.
That's true.
You know how this gets.
No, I know.
He would shoot people back to where we're supposed to be, you know. He gave us a moral sense, which I thought was very important, you know, to the lawmakers, because we can get into the abstract bullshit and forget why we're doing this, you know. And he didn't listen to me. Yeah, he's a good man.
Can I get a picture for our website?
Whenever you're ready.
Hey, let me just ask her.
yes, sir.
Huh? The human face is actually not. You know?
You want me to take a photo? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Because I should take my glasses out.
One more time. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much.
La primera parada era en el campo Texas. De ahí para luego a Navasota y luego a Waxahachie, Helpline, y luego a West Texas.
Yeah, yes, I sure hope so. Semicircle.
Sí, sí,
Something's happening there. Oh, that was such a
Are we ready? Well, by that time we'll get to it.
Okay.
Just round it out for a little bit of the gap. Come here a little closer so they can see.
Thank you very much. Let me welcome everyone. Thank all of you for being here as we introduce this very important legislation today. Interestingly enough, on World Water Day, and I want to thank a special thanks to the environmental justice leaders that are here with us today, both up here with me and the other lawmakers that'll be here, and also joining us today from all over the country, leaders that we have depended on. I want to say something about this. I'll do it quickly so that some of the other people can speak. EJ for All bill it's not my piece of legislation. In fact, it's not any lawmaker's piece of legislation. This legislation was developed and sustained by communities impacted by environmental injustice, frontline communities across this country, from indigenous communities to the communities in West Virginia, dealing with the mountaintop and the consequences of that extraction over the long term, to people dealing with significant issues of clean air, clean water across this country. And we didn't have to go back and reprove what is already real. That these communities not only are overburdened, but there has been a purposeful discriminatory practice of siting, polluting industries in poor communities, communities of color, isolated rural communities, and in or about Indian country and tribal land. And so this legislation is about balancing those scales, giving these communities, regardless of zip code, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their income, the opportunity to protect and to have the same benefit of good health and a sustainable environment around them that allows their communities to develop and allows their families to develop. That's the moral center of this legislation: equity and balance. And I partnered with a dear departed friend, Donald McEachin, on this legislation, and he passed, and it was a great loss, and his legacy lives with us. Donald was the moral center to this effort for us and for me. His faith, his strength on these issues was very powerful, and that's the legacy he lives on. And with the permission of his family, the bill that we're introducing is named the A. Donald McEachin Environmental Justice for All Act. Yeah. And as we take a moment, and I'll just ask for a moment to reflect on the purpose of this legislation and reflect on the legacy and ongoing legacy that Donald has left for all of us in this legislation. Take just a moment to reflect on that, because as I was telling someone right now, that there was a moral clarity to this legislation, and much of that moral clarity had to do with the strength and the faith of Donald McEachin. And I want to thank him and take a moment to reflect and to thank him very much. And partners in this effort, the organizations, as I said, it's not ours. It's not any lawmakers. It belongs to the community. It truly is a people's bill, developed from community to the Capitol. And I hope that people learn a lesson, that and lawmakers learn a lesson, that the more of a critical engagement and a real engagement you have with community, the better their legislation is, the more reflective of real needs it is, and the more authentic it is to the people. And this legislation represents that effort, and I'm very, very proud of it, and I hope it's a precedent going forward. I also want to thank the leaders, my colleagues in the Senate and in the House. Congresswoman Barbara Lee from California will now join as the co-lead on this legislation. I'm very proud. Her work in the Capitol, her work as a congresswoman and a representative is iconic. Moral clarity, strength of purpose, that's added to this effort that we're going to have ongoing. And Barbara Lee brings that to it, and we're very, very proud and very happy to have her as part of the team. On the Senate side, the consistency of the good Senator Tammy Duckworth has been there from the beginning. And I want to thank her leadership in the Senate, and now joined by Senator Booker, a voice of strength on the issues of environmental justice, adding to the momentum. Now, I realize that the House is controlled by another party right now, by the Republicans. And so our chances of legislative achievements, as we had last year, where we got it out of the Resources Committee, unfortunately, should have been, but wasn't on the floor for a vote. That does not mean that this effort is ended. It now gathers momentum. And today, particularly, as we file this legislation, the contrast that we'll see next week with H.R. 1, the energy polluters piece of legislation that the Republicans are going to have on the floor, the contrast. And this is why the contrast is so important. One of the pillars of the legislation is NEPA, the National Environmental Act. NEPA is about the public's right to know, the public's right to redress, and the public's right to be at the table as decisions are made on how things will affect their community and their families. H.R. 1, that the Republicans have, guts NEPA and effectively eliminates a path to redress and a path to participation on the part of many communities, and particularly poor and communities of color in this country. The next thing is in that so we strengthen NEPA in the legislation. We make it the public arm that it needs to be. We provide grants for EJ communities to be able to prepare themselves and have the wherewithal and expertise and organizing ability to be able to protect their communities and be able to respond to the legislation and what this legislation calls for. The second one is that you've got to factor in cumulative impact. That burdening and then overburdening certain communities, there's a cumulative impact. It's not just the last polluting industry that you gauge. You gauge 20 years, 15 years of accumulation and burden on a community. And when you do that, then the true public health costs to people and the true development costs to communities become clear. And that no project should go in that adds to that cumulative negative impact on families and communities around industries. That's a key pillar. And redress. Communities in which there is a deliberate, conscious, consequential, discriminatory pattern in the siting and placing of polluting industries, those communities should have redress through the courts under the Civil Rights Act. And so We deal with the Sandoval case that limited, the Supreme Court case that limited the redress under civil rights for communities, and add the issue of environmental justice and discrimination to the list of redress and things that can be adjudicated under the Civil Rights Act. I think that becomes an important enforcement tool for communities, not just to depend on the government to do it, but to have your redress and you have your ability to call people into question. That's the law. That's what we're trying to do. And it is a strong piece of legislation. As the Republicans go forward, pretending and closing their eyes to the reality of climate, to the reality of equity and justice in this country in terms of our environment, as we overburden and over-impact communities that have already been hurt and continue to be hurt, H.R. 1. And what we're proposing is to create a balance and begin to deal with the question of equity in environmental policy and in energy policies across this nation. To put a human face, not an abstract number, a human face on what we're talking about. The Environmental Justice for All Act, Donald McEachin's Act, does just that. It humanizes, it talks about life in the same equation that we talk about numbers, and the same equation that we talk about bottom line, and the same equation that we talk about profit, and the same equation that we talk. This creates a balance, and I'm very proud of this. We have with us today environmental leaders from across the country. We also have the colleagues that I mentioned that are joining with us today. One of the individuals that is now the vice ranking member, and in 2 years, hopefully the vice chair of the Resources Committee, Sydney Kamlager-Dove, freshman from California, very smart, very committed to the issues that we're talking about, and a leader on our committee already. And we're very proud to introduce her to you. Many of you don't know her, but you will. And we're very glad that she chose to join our committee and to make this issue of environmental justice be our partner on that committee and our partner in the House of Representatives to move it forward and to continue to build the momentum across this country about the issue that environmental justice legislation is addressing. Let me invite her, the gentlelady from California, if you don't mind. There you are. You got
Well, thank you, Ranking Member Grijalva, for the introduction and for your fierce advocacy and your warm welcome to Congress. And it's so great to be here with champions in the Senate, Mr. Booker and Ms. Duckworth. I'm excited. As a new member of Congress, this has been a surreal and humbling experience. I hail from California's 37th Congressional District. It's a Democrat majority state, but I also hail from a district which is home to the Inglewood oil field, the largest urban oil field in the country. And I have gone to many a town hall where I have met 9- and 10-year-old boys and girls with metal plates in their chest, the result of toxicity that comes into their homes every single day because polluters are allowed to drill and drill and drill without any consequence. Communities like mine face some of the largest environmental injustices every single day. And so when I think about the reality of these activities, it is not lost on me that this often happens in communities where voting rights have been suppressed, where economic equity is hard to find, and where there is a legacy of segregation because of redlining policies. These conditions allow derelict behavior towards our environment to fester. And it is the black and brown, it is the indigenous, it is the working poor communities who bear the brunt of the worst impacts of this climate crisis, which is happening every single day of the year and not 4 times a year like some of our Republican colleagues like to say. So when I think about the legacy of segregation and redlining policies and how it continues to impact, I think about the fact that our communities are breathing in air that has significant rates of pollution and that is known to lead to adverse health effects, including asthma, cardiovascular disease, lung cancer, and reproductive harm. So when I think about proposals like H.R. 1, the Polluters Over People bill from the new majority, which attacks fundamental environmental protections, which curbs public input, the responsibility that we have as advocates, as legislators, as truth tellers, is more important now than ever before. It is a charge that we have to tell the truth about the fact that you have bills like H.R. 1 designed to silence and erase communities. And we should not stand for that. It is a charge that Ranking Member Grijalva and the late Representative Donald McEachin, a moral voice of Congress, thankfully heard. Legislation that addresses environmental justice must also address the pre-existing disparities. Full stop, period. So as Vice Ranking Member of the House Natural Resources Committee, and who thought that this committee would be as outrageous as it is, I am honored to be speaking in support of this bill that does exactly that. As previously noted, the A. Donald McEachin Environmental Justice for All bill is the people's bill. This bill was written by and is representative of what impacted communities across the country are asking for in respect to federal policy that advances environmental justice. It is asking that communities are heard. You cannot serve the people if you don't love the people. And you can't love the people if you're not listening to the people. And the people are saying that their input, their lived experiences, the result of living in communities where they are being erased and not consulted, must end. The climate crisis is real. The fact that corporations are allowed to drill with impunity and that profits come over people in this Congress every single day, it must be said loud and clear in every committee and on the floor until everyone understands that we are fighting for justice for everyone and not just those that are in the glass houses. Ranking Member Grijalva and others saw and heard firsthand the concerns of all of you and of the communities across this country. I listened to them too when I was in the state Senate and the state assembly, which is why I'm incredibly passionate about fighting against the cumulative impacts that our communities of color and working poor communities suffer. And asking folks, community, government, corporations to step up and own your role in what we're living with and suffering from now. Because, you know, we don't have these issues in Malibu. They don't come to Malibu, but they come to South Central, they come to Inglewood, they come to South LA. And they say, I'll bring my cash for your silence. And maybe that is more important than your health. I will never say yes to that. Because the future of our children and how we care for our seniors and how we care for the working folks who are getting up every single day, working hard to make a living, expecting us to be protecting their health, that is what this bill is about. It will amend the Civil Rights Act to allow private citizens to sue based on the disparate impacts of pollution. It will distribute $75 million a year to communities most affected by pollution to support projects that address environmental and health concerns. And it will require that impacted communities be consulted earlier in the process, which is required by NEPA. Something the majority is trying to unravel, take apart, and say is antiquated and unnecessary. Help me, Jesus. Which is why I am so honored to stand with communities in support of this legislation. And I look forward to fighting to advance it with each and every one of you, to continue to tell the truth about the existential threat that is corporate pollution, climate change, and the further colonialization of communities of color in urban and rural communities across this country that deserve better than what the Republicans are giving right now.
I hope you appreciated the Congresswoman's subtlety as much as I do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me now invite the senator from New Jersey, Senator Booker, who at the discussion of environmental justice legislation, dealing with this issue, both in community and here in the halls of the Senate, Senator Booker's been there, and we're very, very proud and very glad that he lends his considerable leadership and voice to this issue. You know, part of the cumulative impact is modeled after the state law in New Jersey that requires and begins to require that of all industries in terms of how they cite. So with that, let me ask the good senator for his comments. Sir.
Thank you, Congressman. I have to go between two extraordinary women. My sister, who represents my mom's home community, and one of the great champions in our country when it comes to environmental justice. I think, Congressman Grijalva, we are just the kind of in the way of the main event here. But I do thank my House colleagues for their incredible leadership. They are the Twin Towers, keeping the hope alive at a time that environmental justice is under further assault, as we see with H.R. 1. This bill is about a fundamental American ideal. This bill is about justice for all. You cannot have justice for all without environmental justice. We live in a nation that justice is having access to clean water. Justice is having access to clean air. Justice is having soil in your community that does not poison your children or threaten the lives of the elderly. This is about the fundamental idea of justice in America. And we know we don't have it because there are too many communities in which bad actors, corporate operators, are putting profits before people. They're putting their bottom line before the moral line. They are seeing a lot of activity, a lot of accounting, but there is no accountability. We have a nation right now where millions of Americans are living in conditions in which their environment doesn't sustain them or nourish them or nurture them. The environment poisons them. And what is even more painful about that is that they are overwhelmingly in areas where people are already vulnerable. We have folks for profit are preying upon people who are already in struggle. I have seen this across our country. In an African American community along the Mississippi River, literally called Cancer Alley, because of all the chemical companies, I stood in a church and listened to family after family come to me and tell me about the deaths that they have faced in their families because of the outrageous cancer cluster in which they live. I've been to Duplin County, North Carolina, where companies like Smithfield's, international, multinational corporations, are literally creating massive lagoons, factory farming waste. that then are put into the air and have had again community members crowd around me desperate to be able to tell their truth to a federal official that will listen to them as they talk about their respiratory diseases, about how they can't open their windows or run their air conditioning because the stench in their community is so bad. And I don't need to go to North Carolina, to California, to Louisiana. I could go out my own door into my own community, where you see these incredible community assets like the Passaic River polluted because corporations willingly dumped Agent Orange into the water, poisoning people, poisoning soil, poisoning water, robbing from our community its recreation, a source of food. Literally people that were making public their poisons but privatizing their profits. And here they were, companies that are stealing from our common future in order to enrich themselves. This legislation I'm proud of. I'm proud to have worked for years now with Senator Duckworth, who is one of my co-leads of our Environmental Justice Caucus, one of my co-founders with me of the Environmental Justice Caucus. We are honored to join hands across the Capitol at a pivotal moment that more people in this nation are understanding the threats that come from cumulative impact, the threats that come from lax regulations, the threats that come that allow company after company to steal, to poison, to take what is a fundamental right to every American is clean air, clean soil, clean water. And so the Congresswoman was right. This is not only a practical pain, but it is a spiritual anguish to have to come to Washington and beg for protections of our natural right, to have to come to Washington and get legislators to listen to us, that their loyalty should be to the people and not those who are causing the pain. I believe that like the labor movement and the civil rights movement, like the workers' rights movement or the LGBTQ movement, this has got to be a national movement now. We're seeing too many rises in poisoning of our people. We're seeing too much of a rise in cancers and preventable diseases if we were loyal to our founding ideals of liberty and justice for all. And so now all of us as Americans put our hand over our heart and swear an oath to those ideals, liberty and justice for all. Let us all proclaim with a common chorus of conviction, you cannot have justice for all unless you have environmental justice. I give you now, if I may steal the introduction, I give you truly one of the great titans in the United States Senate, someone who is a warrior for the people, someone who knows, as the Congresswoman said, you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. I bring you my colleague, Senator Duckworth.
Well, I always hate following Cory Booker. But it is great to be back here on the House side of the Capitol, because this is where I woke up to the issue of environmental justice. It was over 10 years ago, serving here on the House side under the leadership of the great Elijah Cummings, when we were holding hearings on the Flint water crisis. And I had a 6-month-old baby at the time, and I looked out into the audience, and in the depth of that audience, I saw a mom hold up the exact same brand of baby bottle that I was using with my daughter, the same pink bottle, but the water in hers was brown. And I remember thinking how devastating it must be to find out that this is all that you have, and this is what you must feed your child. And those children in Flint now have permanent brain damage that we will be dealing with, and it must stop. So it was here on the House side that I learned about environmental injustice. And you know, it is incredible in this country that this is still the situation. If you go just 10 stops on the subway in Chicago, just 10 stops, the life expectancy drops by 18 to 22 years in 10 stops. That's right. As you travel deeper into Chicago's south and west sides, the life expectancy drops as the rate of toxic environmental pollutants surge. This is life expectancy outside of violence, outside of accidents. It is tragedies of the healthcare system. There is something wrong when black kids on the south and west sides of Chicago are 8 times more likely to die from asthma than white children in more affluent neighborhoods. There's something wrong when families are still living, still dying in a stretch of Louisiana, as my colleague mentioned, named Cancer Alley. There is still something wrong when there are thousands of communities across America with lead poisoning rates more than double those of Flint during the peak of their contamination crisis. For far too long, we've put our most toxic, most polluting industries next door to black and brown neighborhoods just for them to quite literally get dumped on over and over and over again. These communities fueled the economic development of this great nation. We are a powerful economy, the greatest economy on the face of the earth, because our ability to industrialize. Well, we did it at the expense of these communities. Those in power have looked the other way. It is past time that we right this wrong, because no one should have to drink brown water, breathe contaminated air, or worry about pollution that's impact on their family's health. Someone who knew better than most was our colleague, Congressman Donald McEachin. And I am proud to be with you today to help reintroduce the Environmental Justice for All Act in his name. This is so much more than just an environmental issue. It is a matter of uprooting systemic racism while promoting health equity and safety. Under the previous administration, we could not get the EPA to do ambient air monitoring in black and brown communities for the same pollutants that they were doing ambient air monitoring in white affluent communities within the same Chicagoland area. There is systemic racism and we must fight it, and this bill will address that. It is a matter of discrimination against those in poorer neighborhoods. It is about ensuring that communities of color have a seat at the table when we plan a cleaner future. They should be part of that future. That they should be the ones who are benefiting first from a greener environment, from all the technologies that we are developing. It is about making sure that no one is left behind. So I'm thrilled to have my Senate Environmental Justice Co-Chair, Senator Booker, joining this bill with me. As my new Senate co-lead. Thank you for being a longtime friend and ally with me on environmental justice issues. I've learned so much from you, and I am excited to continue with that partnership. Thank you once more to Congressman Grijalva for continuing to be my partner in this work, and Congresswoman Barbara Lee for joining us as well. And we're going to need all the help we can get to make sure that we get this done right for every black and brown American who has been wronged by environmental justice. Thank you also to Rep. Kamlager-Dove for helping join us in this fight. Your newness in the House does not match the fierceness with which you are fighting on this issue. I am so proud to have you as part of the team. You know, we just passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill last year. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act. We are putting a lot of money into fixing our nation's infrastructure. And I've had time again, some of my Republican colleagues tell me, well, you know what, we're going to fix those problems. A rising tide raises all boats. And my answer to them is not if your boat has a hole in it. Let's fix the holes, let's remediate, let's fix the problems so that everyone can benefit from a cleaner environment for the future, not just the affluent white communities. Thank you for letting me be here. Do I get to introduce the next speaker? Oh, okay. All right, I'm going to turn this back over to the chairman. Thank you.
Are these yours?
Yes, they are. I always forget them. Okay, where do you want?
I think we're going to go right against everybody here in the community.
Yes. Yeah. They're the ones doing all the hard work. Let me tell you.
Amen.
Mix it up. Disadvantage of being tall. See?
I know.
I'm short. See, this is the thing.
That's why you're in front.
We always used to get in front pictures, Senator, because we're short.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you. Yep, well, thank you so much. It's so good to meet you.
Let me, as I said earlier, this cannot be done without community and without some very, very important and terrifically strong organizations and individuals. And let me introduce one of those individuals, Miss Faith Harris. She's a director of the Virginia Interfaith Power and Light and a longtime friend of Mr. McEachin and his family. She's part of the Environmental Justice Working Group and has been the guide in terms of this legislation and its content, and has been an integral part of the development of this legislation from the beginning. I want to thank her very much for her leadership and recognize Ms. Harris for any comments you might want to make. There you are.
Good morning, and thank you, Representative Grijalva and Barbara Lee in your absence, Senator Booker and Senator Duckworth, and for also Representative Kamlager-Dove. I am delighted to be here this morning, and thank you so much for the decision to name the policy, this policy, rename it after A. Donald McEachin, Congressman from the 4th District of Virginia, late Congressman from the 4th District of Virginia, who until the very end of his life worked alongside Congressman Grijalva to see this legislation introduced and passed. It is right that this legislation is named after such a tireless advocate for communities in his district and across this country who need recourse against the disproportionate and cumulative polluting impacts that threaten their daily lives from their government and from industry. As Director of Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, our staff works daily alongside communities where we see negative environmental impacts due to benign neglect by their state and federal government or the systemic racism of industry practices, which directly impact Black, Brown, Indigenous, poor white rural communities as well, with polluting industries like coal-fired and natural gas energy production plants and other polluting industries. Communities of color or low-wealth communities of any ethnicity have been targets to host the dirtiest industries. These communities struggle to resist the construction of new fossil fuel infrastructure like pipelines and multiple compressor stations. Historic freedmen's communities in Virginia and elsewhere face erasure and displacement without legal protections and recourse. And communities need tools to protect their rights to clean air, potable water, and healthy food sources. And many have too long been rebuffed by their city, state, and federal agencies when they sought relief. All these communities have one thing in common. They are deemed politically vulnerable to those in power. The A. Donald McEachin Justice for All Act will give them tools on the federal level to fight for their rights to live healthy and peaceful lives. This legislation returns the right of individuals and communities to seek lawful action through their courts when faced with prohibited discrimination. It defines and requires consideration of cumulative impacts in permitting under the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. Ensuring a reasonable certainty of no harm. And these are only a few of the components of this legislation to support the environmental justice struggles of our communities. When passed, the A. Donald McEachin Environmental Justice for All Act will provide communities across Virginia with the tools they need to protect their rights to clean air, water, and healthy environments. But not only Virginia, but every state. This act will give Black, Brown, and Indigenous individuals the confidence to know that when they work hard, save their money, buy land, build homes, begin families, and or retire, they can do so in peace, like any other resident of this country. They can do so without the threat of losing it all to a polluting industry, backed by weak federal protections, and they will have meaningful legal avenues to protect their interest. All residents in this country need to know that they will not have their tranquility and their freedoms threatened by the actions of their government or corporate interest, and they have redress when it does occur. After all, these are basic to our democracy. These rights, these are human rights: clean air, clean water, healthy soils to grow food, places where our children can play, places where we can work in and be able to breathe in clean air and to drink clean water. This is just part of what it means to be human, isn't it? This act sets the moral tone and trajectory for fair and just treatment of individuals and communities by their government. And recognizing that we've heard so much today, recognize this, that the climate crisis is actually the moral issue of our times. And the way that we respond to it speaks volumes about who we are as a people. Are we people who actually do believe in human rights? Do we believe in the health of our planet? Do we believe in the future for the future generations? Do we believe in a livable future? We thank Representative Grijalva and Barbara Lee. We thank Senator Booker and Duckworth, and also Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove, because they are now stepping up to take leadership and carry on the work that our senator and friend A. Donald McEachin brought to this Capitol many years ago when he first became a congressman. We are grateful that they are representing both the people and the planet through this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me now introduce one of the exceptional young leaders on climate with Gen Z for Change, whose work you've probably already seen. Gen Z for Change is a very powerful and strong group of young activists, social media influencers that is giving all of us a lesson on organizing. And around the Willow issue, they were particularly impactful in generating the attention and the pushback on those decisions. We're all engaged in this climate fight. What they bring is a powerful new communication, an energy, and a passion for the issue that is needed. And let me invite Ms. Joshi to please, Elise, to please join us and make her remarks.
Oh, God. Of course, I'm Gen Z, and I'm the only one with a phone for my remarks. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be in everybody's presence. I'm just so happy to be here. As a Gen Z climate justice activist, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today and continue to stand up for a future that we deserve. It is no question that climate and environmental justice are inextricably linked, and how committed my generation is to combating both issues. We garnered significant attention fighting against the Willow oil drilling project to the tune of over 5 million petitions and letters sent against the project. Thank you. Now we are here today, outraged and disappointed over Willow's approval to fight back against all legacy polluters that have taken advantage of underserved communities for decades. Let's be clear. Decisions like Willow, a carbon bomb that will intensify the climate crisis globally, will impact frontline communities the hardest. These communities deserve to be listened to, included in the decision-making process, and given the tools to fight back. The Environmental Justice for All Act does just that. It ensures that Gen Z has the resources and power to build a just and sustainable future by centering by centering and prioritizing the well-being, health, and opportunity of the most vulnerable communities plagued by fossil fuel industries for decades. While Republicans attempt to gut environmental protections as we speak via H.R. 1, prioritizing profit yet again, Environmental Justice for All Act halts the cycle of injustice that polluters have inflicted on communities, creating a world for Gen Z that does not depend on sacrifice zones. Our generation has been let down. Now, more than ever, we need hope. We need generational solidarity. We need to put people over profit, finally. And we need legislation like the Environmental Justice for All Act. Let's stop Willow, stop H.R. 1, and pass the Environmental Justice for All Act. Thank you so much.
By way of closing, thank you very much. And the leaders that are here from communities that are behind me, they're available to any of the press or communications people that would like to talk to them. As everybody spoke, next week we're going to be, in the midst of a debate on H.R. 1 that the Republicans brought forth. And we will be in that mire that they create with misinformation, lies, false narratives, and crisis creation. But we have to do this now at the expense of. Well, we felt that it was important to say to the Republican majority in the House that Democrats are not going to tolerate collateral damage of any kind. We're not going to tolerate it when it comes to what we need to do to fight climate and to begin to turn into a transition for the American people, but for the world as well. And we're not going to allow collateral damage to continue and be increased for the communities that Environmental Justice for All Act, the Donald McEachin bill, attempts to address and attempts to protect. That's the legislation. And it's a legislation that said there is no more collateral damage. I think Senator Duckworth said the vote has a hole. And these communities have borne the brunt of our development, borne the brunt of Americans' convenience, enriched many, many corporations. And now it's time, as I said earlier, to create a balance and create equity for these communities. And this bill is more complex and more meaningful than people would want to give it credit. It's not an isolated group of people that we're taking care of here. What we're doing is saying that the remedies and the protections that need to be extended to people for their health and their well-being, and as is well said, their opportunities in the future, needs to be extended to all. This bill is about equity. This bill is about fighting climate change. This bill is about the transition to a cleaner environment. And above all, this bill is about creating balance and equity and accountability for all Americans, and that we have no more collateral damage. H.R. 1 is about collateral damage. H.R. 1 is about punishing some and enriching others. H.R. 1 is about turning back the clock to a time that we fought so hard to change. So here we are. It's an opportunity. I'm glad you're with us. And like I said, the leadership that is behind us is available to all of you. Thank you very much.